The ICOM IC-705. I've been using this for nearly 6 months, so how did I find it? Well, before we talk about that, you know, radio has come a long way to reach this stage. For example, do you remember this?
Yes, black and white TV. And if you wanted to get on the air around about this time, you would perhaps purchase this book and build yourself a 160 metre 2-vel transmitter. Just 14 years later, ICOM was born with their first product, this 6 metre AM transceiver. The rest, they say, is history.
Welcome once again to the Waters and Stanton video channel, and thanks for joining me. I've published several videos actually on the ICOM IC-705, but they've been videos that cover particular topics. I thought it'd be rather interesting to summarise my feelings on the IC-705 because it's somewhat of a unique transceiver, and it certainly had a lot of press, most of it good of course, but certainly it's different from the normal run-of-the-mill transceivers. So let's take a look at, or at least my feelings and how I found the IC-705. Although I'd seen pictures of the IC-705, it was bigger than I expected it to be. It's quite heavy, but of course there is a lot of mass there, and of course it has got the battery on, but there again so have other transceivers. So it was bigger. I mean, if I put it down here and just show you the difference between that and my little KX2, you'll see there is quite a bit of difference in size, and certainly the KX2 is pocket size, but you couldn't call the IC-705 pocket size. In actual fact, both transceivers have the same power output. They both give 5 watts output from internal batteries and 10 watts out from external voltage. In fact, the KX2 will give a little bit more output on an external voltage, about 12 watts. And you can squeeze 10 watts from the internal battery for a little while until the voltage sags and then it switches down. The IC-705 has the advantage of covering 160 metres to 70 sems, whilst the KX2 only covers 80 to 10 metres. So the KX2 is certainly for the HF man who wants to travel light and have his own one-man expedition. So what is the attraction of these radios? Well, of course, it is QRP, and QRP has a big following. It's had big following for years. In fact, a lot of radio started out as QRP anyway, as I showed you right at the beginning of this video with a 5 watt 160 metre transmitter. A lot of people have satisfaction in that they've got this all mode, all band radio that they can stick in their rucksack, or if you've got a large pocket, stick in your pocket, and it does most things that most people want in ham radio. It's got the band coverage, it's got the facilities, it's got the modes, it's got selectivity controls and so forth. So it's a radio, it's a complete station in one box. And I suppose some people hark back to the days of the B2 spy radio and something else called a paraset, which I'll cover actually in an upcoming video. But there's some satisfaction about having a compact radio that you can take anywhere with you and you can communicate with. That's the attraction of QRP and portable operation. Now, I know there are those that criticise, and they're entitled to criticise because they're not interested in that. But the fact is that there is a lot of fun in working low power because it's fun. You know, it's a challenge. Like a lot of ham radio is a challenge. Contesting is a challenge and so forth. But people get fun from using low power. When I say people, a lot of people get, and I know there's a lot of you that will disagree, but that's fine. That's the great hobby of amateur radio. We cover a complete range of things. So let's get back to the IC-705. When I first got this radio and I looked at the battery, I thought, is that battery going to really power a radio like this? But then I thought, well, wait a minute, that radio is 5 watts and there's plenty of handhelds that use this battery or this size of battery and they run 5 watts. So really and truly, a battery of this size with a radio of this size, particularly when it's on SSB or CW, when it's an intermittent rating, should give good life. And I've actually found that it works pretty well. I get quite a lot of use out of this battery. In fact, I mean, I've never run it down in a day yet. I mean, I haven't done, you know, sort of extensive operation over long periods with it, but certainly for 2 or 3 hours of operation, it works. You can't ask for more than that. The other thing I like about it is that the battery is automatically charged. You don't need a separate charger for it. When you plug an external 12-volt supply into the IC-705, it will not only power the radio, but it will also charge the battery. So that's quite convenient, not to have to worry about having a separate charger. And of course, if you have a cigar socket for this radio, cigar DC lead, then not only will it power the radio, but of course, again, it will charge a battery. The downside of all these radios is that, by the way, they're not waterproof, and they're not really showerproof actually, because if you look at the protection on the 705, although it's got some little flaps that go over the sockets, I wouldn't say they're waterproof or showerproof. Fortunately, you can actually put this in a rucksack. In fact, ICOM do a nice little rucksack, and the radio can be left permanently in the rucksack, so you just lift the flap and do the operation. That's really a nice way of using it, I think, out in the field. And if I was going to do a lot of operating outside when the weather was a little bit iffy, I would certainly want to use a rucksack.
And the distance is a second as well. I've got like a pencil. Very, very nice on the ear. Yeah, that's very good.
With the FT817 and 818, it doesn't really sit on the desk very well. You need something underneath it to tilt it. And although the IC-705 seems to have been designed with angled case that would make it sit on a desk and tilt upwards, it doesn't actually work, and I think that may be because the battery is not as heavy as they anticipated. But I did a video recently showing that if you take the little nut and screw nut out of the earth terminal and put it into the base there, and you'll see the video on this channel, you put that in there, then you will find that it will actually sit on the desk and tilt backwards. So that is a convenient way of doing it, and it doesn't cost you anything, which is not a bad deal, is it? None of these portable radios, of course, come with ATUs as standard. The FT818 and the predecessor, the 817, never did have an ATU, and I always thought that when they brought out the FT818 it would have an ATU built in, but it didn't. And of course the IC-705 doesn't have an ATU either. The Elecraft KX2 does have the facility of an internal ATU, but that's an extra. So as they come out of the box, none of these radios have built-in auto ATUs. I'm sure many of you know that when I've been out operating, I tend to favour an end-fed half wave with the matching transformer. That means to say that you haven't got to worry about an ATU, and it works quite well. So let's now take a look at the IC-705 itself and see what features that I really like. One of the things I do like about it is the forward-facing speaker. The speaker on here is pretty good, and it's forward-facing. And I always think that's a feature that is missing from so many transceivers. A nice forward-facing speaker. This one doesn't rattle. It's quite powerful, and it certainly is fine outdoors in the open. The current drain on the 705 is quite modest. It's about 250 milliamps on receive, and you can turn this display off or have it so it switches itself off after a little while, but really and truly it doesn't seem to consume that amount of power. Now when it comes to displays, really and truly, that is unbeatable. That display is absolutely fabulous. There's so much information on it, and of course you've got the spectrum scope on there as well, so you can see what's around, which is particularly useful, say, on 2 meters. If you're out and about on 2 meters. And of course this does work very well as a 2 meter transceiver. Give it 12 watts and you've got 10 watts out, which is quite respectable on 2 meters, and of course 70 sems.
1 in Juliet Oscar 01 Charles. Mike 0, Mike Charlie Victor, ticky contact.
I really like that display, and as I say, there's so much information that it gives. It's very easy to see even in bright light. I thought perhaps in sunlight it might be a bit of a problem, but no, it's very easy to see in bright light. And in fact, really and truly, it's got all the features that are on the IC-705. It's got lots of big rig features. You can record CW messages on there and play them back. You can go in there and you get a type, like a little typewriter, and you can actually type messages, CW messages in there. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, I don't operate CW, why would I need it? Well, I'll tell you why you need it. I did another video on this as well, reverse beacon network. You know, when you're operating low power, it's nice to know whether you're being heard anywhere. You might put out a couple of CQs, you get no replies, you think, oh gosh, is my antenna getting out? Well, reverse beacon network lets you check that. And what you need to do is to put type in on the typeface there, on the CW memory channel, there's 6 of those actually, put test, 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 and then your call sign about 2 or 3 times. And you can send that signal as a test, test, test G3OJV, and then go onto the reverse beacon network and see where you're heard. Now, if you've got a smartphone that's got access to the internet, you can just put in there the reverse beacon network, and within seconds you'll see on the screen stations that have heard you. There's reverse beacon network stations in the UK, all around Europe, in the USA, etc. And I often use that. If I'm out somewhere and I put out a couple of CQs and I think, well, I wonder if I'm getting out. Reverse beacon network tells you whether you're getting out and also gives you a signal strength, so you know not only where you're getting to, but what sort of signal strength you're putting into that particular area of the world. The bandwidth filtering is very good. You've got 3 bandwidths and you can vary those by moving the IF about and so forth. So you've got great flexibility with the bandwidth. And I've also found that the noise, the DSP noise reduction circuit is excellent. It's one of the best I've come across. And bear in mind, we're still talking about a portable radio. I found it very, very good when you've got interference. Of course, the great thing about operating portable is that very often you haven't got any interference. And that's the attraction of going out portable. One of the attractions, you get away from all this noise that we have in domestic situations, operating in a nice, quiet place, hearing signals that you wouldn't hear at home. So, another reason for going portable. Now, my eyes are not so good these days, but I do love the menu system. I press that, and I hope you can see that on the camera, press that, and I can go up and down the menu like that. Very easy to read, nice large text, high contrast. So I love that. I love the menu system, rather than having to get a sort of a magnifying glass to read it. I spoke about CW recording channels, but you've got 8 voice recording channels here. So if you're an SSB operator, or even an FM of course, you can record onto 8 channels. So you can put out CQ and you can put out sort of contest type calls, that sort of thing. Very useful. So another feature, which again you don't get. In fact, you don't even get that on some of the current base stations. So it's a very useful feature, I find. You've got Vox, of course, as well. So you can press that and it will trigger the Vox and put out CQ for you while you have a ham sandwich and drink a cup of coffee or whatever you drink when you're out portable. And of course, you can also use it mobile. Another feature which I've found really nice is the metering system. You've got nice large meters for SWR, power output, compression, ALC. They're all not squashed up in a little tiny part of the screen. They're really large, very easy to read, and a pleasure to operate with. And of course, you've got your power control. If you want to operate really sort of QRP, you can go down to about 100 milliwatts, I think, and you can go up to full power. You can use the same control to adjust your mic gain, to adjust your compression. CW, key speed is right on the front panel there. Just turn that control and you adjust your key speed. All readily available. So, am I enthusiastic about it? Well, yes, I am actually. I haven't really been able to fault it as such. The receiver is good. It works extremely well, either on base station antennas or out in the field. The size of it is surprising, but on the other hand, you feel that you've got something. There's something there. It's quite weighty, but you feel that you've got something for your money. And as I say, I like the display, of course, and I feel very comfortable using it. And I feel that everything I need is in there apart from the antenna tuner. And as I can operate without an antenna tuner because the antennas I use, that doesn't worry me really. I think for VHF it's also a great radio because 10 watts, all right, 5 watts on battery, but 10 watts on an external supply is quite a respectable signal. And I've had some great results with my little VHF antenna. I've got a dual band VHF antenna outside for 2 meters and 70 sems, which I've put up on the screen now. And that works extremely well with this radio. And I've been on the evening activity evenings on Tuesdays on 2 meters and 70 sems and had lots of fun. So yeah, it really is nice. So are there any downsides? Well, I think that you would need to make sure you protect it when you're out, because you wouldn't want to drop this on a hard surface, because if you drop this on a hard surface, you're going to do some damage. Okay, that applies to the other radios as well, but this one is expensive. So I think you need to be careful with it. The screen seems to be okay, it doesn't seem to mark at all, so I don't think there's a problem there. And I think that for a lot of people, it's a significant amount of money to spend, so I do understand that. But like a lot of things in life, if you really are into portable operation, then you may well think, well, that's what I want, because that does everything that I could possibly really want. And I think that's true. I think for most operators that want to operate QRP out in the field, all modes, it's very difficult to fault this radio. But if you're looking for a radio that's going to operate QRP, give you a lot of fun, and I think it's going to retain its value as well. I think this will retain its value. So there we are, that's my take on the IC-705. I'm not doing a review on the finer points of performance and that, because you know what I think? I think that if you're operating QRP, it doesn't really matter whether that is 3rd in line of the best receivers or 10th in line of the best receivers, because out in the field you're not going to notice the difference. You could put it on a bench and you could put a signal generator on it and you could measure all sorts of things on it, and you could say, oh, it's not as good as so and so. But, and this is a big but, would you know and would you notice the difference without putting it on a lab bench and measuring it? And I would say no, you probably won't. And I have done some A/B tests on 2 and 70 sems with this and the IC-9700, which I've got in the shack, and I cannot tell any difference. In terms of receiving the weak beacons, they're equally as good. So in my book, that's not a bad start. So there we are. I've talked about the IC-705. I'm quite enthusiastic about it actually, and I hope that perhaps in all this prattling on I may have given you some information that you find useful. And as usual, of course, do appreciate you watching this channel, because it's only with your support that we get encouraged to keep doing these videos. So keep safe, enjoy your ham radio, and do remember that spring is not too far away now, and with the following wind we may be outside in the spring operating QRP. Let's hope so. Bye for now.